Alright guys, now that we've looked at one talking engine, let's go to a normal engine. And let's start out with everyone's favorite number 5 engine, James. James does look very nice in this packaging, I do have to say. And it makes me ready to open him and take him out of this packaging. Alright, so let's go ahead and do this. Oh, in case you're wondering about prices, the tender engines cost $7 and the tank engines, or small engines, cost $4. So they do keep consistent price with the take and play models. And let's go ahead and get James in. Now, if I can. There we go. James, our favorite red engine, is now out of the box. Let's uncouple him from his tender. Here he is. Again, they, for some reason, shortened the domes on these engines, and I don't understand why, and it really does irritates me. But, no, it just really is weird and random that they would shorten the domes. James has his front pony truck just sticking out in the plastic mold right there. Buffers are not painted, but otherwise he looks pretty well done. Unfortunately, now, like the old take-along models they used to have in inside cab, we don't have that luxury anymore. But it's not the biggest deal. I mean, it wasn't even painted originally. It just had a firebox door matching the color of the engine. Then we also have James's tender. Again, these tenders are very small, and I really don't like the size of these tenders. But it does capture the essence of James's tender. And for James, this size can actually somewhat work, unlike Connor and Caitlin, who have massive tenders. This just does not absolutely work at all. But then, again, let's couple these up. There we go. And that is James. Alright guys, now let's move on to Racing Ivan, otherwise known as Normal Ivan. Either way, I'm going to have some facts here that are going to blow your minds. And this actually blew my minds at first. I thought something looked familiar with Ivan here. There we go. Ivan's out of his box, for that to the side. And here's Ivan. This may look very familiar to a video I posted recently. That's because Ivan's model is exactly the same as his take and play model, minus the couplings in the front. Those are the only things that have changed, are the couplings. Now then, this honestly does prove the same on a lot of the engines. I took Caitlin and compared her with the Caitlin in the box. Also took my version of Connor, and as well as Timothy. And the only difference between Timothy and the other one was his red buffer beam. Now then, it seems like a majority of these engines, the only difference is that the magnet's not there. And so pretty much, even a lot of people may be saying, oh, these engines look very basic and very different. They are pretty much, for a lot of cases, identically the same, except for some, like James and Thomas, have smaller boilers. The only difference is that they have couplings, or different couplings, which is better than we thought, I guess? I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I do like that they didn't cut down on details, but they're already cutting down on details, so I feel like it would have been cool if the hazard stripes are still painted, but Ivan does look rather dashing with these coupling hooks, compared to giant bulky magnets that are probably bigger than his face. Like, let's be serious. Anyway guys, that is Ivan. Now then, it's time to look at our fire engine Flynn. And when I said boilers earlier, I meant domes, by the way. Let's get that straight before there's confusion and delay. But anyway, let's take a look at Flynn. I haven't bought a Flynn in forever, it seems like. Besides the Trackmaster one, but not like a take and play one. Besides when he first came out. So this is going to be a very interesting pick indeed. Let's go ahead and get him open. One thing I do have to say before we even have it open is that, again, like the CGI picture, but I do appreciate that he comes in a card. They could have just given us Flynn by himself, but they gave him with his little trailer too, which is always a plus to have an extra piece of rolling stock to add to our railway. And let's actually take a look at the rolling stock first. One thing you will notice on this, as well as Flynn, is that they have special tires wheels instead of normal train wheels, which is very good to see that they actually went the extra mile and didn't cheap out on us. This is made almost entirely of metal too, and I really do think this is a nice little piece that adds a little bit extra something to the model. Now we have Flynn himself, and it's very weird because this is majority plastic. All the gray part is plastic, everything else is metal. But it looks very nice. I don't know what it is because this gray piece isn't exactly at all how he is. So as we can see, he has red arches, wheel arches, but here they're gray, and it just works. I don't know what it is, but I like it, sort of. Again, his ladder is able to go up and down, but not side to side, sadly. And again, we have these road tires. Either way, I do believe Flynn is an excellent model for the range, but that could have maybe benefit from a little bit more details to his actual model. Alright guys, let's look at the final regular engine model that we have today, and today is Caitlin. Caitlin is, of course, introducing King of the Railway, and yeah, I'm very excited that we are able to get her and Connor. Now, I do find it weird as, for one thing, it does seem like these could be the starting engines that they didn't do, like, hardly any of the cast, like, the main cast of characters. We got engines like Ivan, Timothy, and Flynn, oddball characters, compared to, like, Emily and Gordon, Henry, Edward, and Toby. So, I don't know how I feel about this. I do like that they are giving a wider variety of engines to be available, at least with the first wave of these engines as they start to hit shelves. But at the same time, I do wish that we could have had our main cast of characters. But either way, I can't really complain because I'm starting to like this range, honestly. But we'll save the final thoughts for the end, of course. Let's unhook Caitlin from her tender. Caitlin... Oh, no. See this discoloration of the pink purple that she has? That's the only part that is die cast in her whole entire body. The rest of it is completely plastic. That's... I feel robbed, honestly, because it's being advertised as a die-cast model, and yet they only did it on top? Like, why even do it at that point? Why even make this a die-cast model when you've committed to the rest of it being plastic? I really don't understand that, and I really don't understand why that has to be plastic. It's a very odd thing to do. I mean, she looks nice and everything, but I don't know. It's just really weird. Then we have her tender. You can see some of the flakes of her actual paint showing through the coal. Again, the tender is very squished for Caitlin herself, I do believe. But, you know, I can't really do anything about it. Let's couple Caitlin back up. Caitlin, it's weird how they went about this model. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't just make the tender metal. I mean, at this rate, because there was barely any metal. I mean, that's probably like less than a third of the engine. Less than a third of the engine that's actually metal. That's just odd. Like, why? Well, like, why even do it at that point? But I gotta stop myself. So we're just gonna move on to Talking James. Alright, I contained myself, and now we're going to look at the Dino Discovery James. This is based randomly. I mean, James has never worn a T-Rex head, obviously. But I do believe this has some, of course, I feel like naturally has some reference to Dino and Discoveries and Tale the Brave. Mainly Tale the Brave, since that was a film that James played a pretty decent role in. And the sayings that we never heard James say, I'll tell you that right now. But honestly, I really feel like this is the cooler of the two talking engines. And I don't mean to hate on you, Space Thomas. Sorry, but James looks awesome. Oh, I didn't even realize there was things to say on the back. James dreams of real live dinosaurs at the Sodor Dinosaur Park. Hear fun phrases and sounds from the dino-filled dreams. With Thomas and Friends Adventures, you and Thomas can go wherever your imagination takes you. That's very nice. Again, we're going with the dream concept there. Let's go ahead and get James out of the box. And I really love this promo picture, especially with the lighting and everything. This box, I really do feel like, is the best out of all of them. especially with the specialized text and everything for the Dino Discovery James. And I really do believe that they put a little bit of an extra mile in here compared to the other engines. And I do believe it, even though it's not the best packaging, it still shows that they were trying. Now that we got this out, let's push that to the side. The dyno head is rubber, alright? And it has a hook on there for its funnel, so let's try to get that. Oh dear, we didn't get that. Oh, by the way, it is a normal James with just a yellow light. So now that we have that on there, let's hear some of the phrases.
Raptors don't scare me at all. Yikes. Well, maybe a little. T-Rex on the tracks. Rumble the rails. That volcano is about to blow.
This is an interesting
Oh,
movie.
look. A Sodorsaurus. And a rare Dieseldactyl. Beware. Hot lava up ahead. T-Rex on the tracks. Beware. Hot lava up ahead.
Yeah, that's an interesting James, honestly. Again, we have a normal tender with him. But yeah, I really do think this is my favorite out of the two. I really like the Dino skull on there. It really does just shape up the model entirely different. And it looks very cool. Plus, too, he has a bunch of different funny sound effects or sayings instead of just weird space ones, I believe, honestly. Honestly, I do believe this is my favorite of the two talking ones. And I do believe we ended off on a high note of the normal engines as we move on to the actual set. Before we actually move on to the set, though, let me show you some things I actually forgot to mention. One thing is the blast off to adventure. Thomas has rocketed into space, and you can hear fun phrases and sounds from his mission. With Thomas and Friends Adventures, you and Thomas can go wherever your imagination takes you. Alright, I know since there was one on James, I knew there had to be one on the back of Thomas. One thing I also want to point out is the talking versions of Thomas and James are a little bit taller than their actual counterpart or normal counterparts and have a little bit different details. From what I can tell of Thomas so far is that his cab is taller, and I do believe his whistle is actually there, where in this one it's not present, or at least it's not as noticeable. Again, it's very dark and it's a very squashed cab. Talking James has his 3D handrails going across the whole entire model, which I believe looks very nice. And again, his smoke box his firebox, and as well as his cab is a little bit taller and put together just a little bit differently. And this is to accommodate the engine or the talking feature, but I do find it very nice that they went the extra mile and did handrails of all things.